it's a completely different kind of genre, because this was not only something where you had to creatively have your own character, but it was also like you had to sneeze like your character. You had to remember what you told Ronald 8 days prior. So you had to keep all your ducks in a row of like, oh my God, I told him this, I told him that, but still staying in character. Everything about it. And it was such a crazy, amazing, bizarre thing to do.
Welcome to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation's Conversations at Home program. I'm Jenelle Riley from Variety. And now it is my pleasure to introduce from Everyone's Obsession Jury Duty, director Jake Szymanski, executive producer Nicholas Hatton, and actors Cassandra Blair, Whitney Rice, Maria Russell, and David Brown. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
All right.
Thank you for the pure joy that you've provided over these last months. This is an audience of your fellow SAG-AFTRA actors. So for the actors, I actually like to start by asking, how did you get your SAG card? Do you remember the job that brought that magical, I guess it's a piece of paper to you? And let's start with you.
With me?
Yeah, you're next to
no.
Brady Bunch configuration, so you got to go first.
Absolutely. No, yeah, and happy to. Thank you so much for having us all. I got my SAG card for jury duty yeah. I've been in some indie films before, but what is it? The Taft-Hartley, I guess, for those. And then so this was the thing.
That is so cool, and every actor watching this now immediately loves Jake and Nicholas. So, Whitney, for you?
This happened for me 12 years ago. I was a background actor on Mad Men, and that's how I got in. But then they kept cutting my bangs shorter and shorter and shorter, and so I had to leave.
I love that. Cassandra, for you?
Yeah, I had done a few SAG commercials, so I thought I was going to get my card doing a commercial, but I actually got it on my first co-star for Westworld. This was season 3. I was 8 months pregnant when I auditioned for it, and I was like, they're not gonna cast me. I was very visibly pregnant. But I will say, I think it took the heaviness out of auditioning, because I was like, look, I really just want to go home and lay down. I'm really tired. Get up my feet. And I think that helped with, just the confidence and just relaxing into the part. So anyway, I booked that and I shot it. I was 2 weeks before I had the baby. I shot Westworld.
That's amazing. And they often say, like, when you go in for casting, you are supposed to sort of pretend you don't care, or maybe like not put so much emphasis on it, which is sort of impossible to do. But it sounds like it actually worked in this situation.
Oh my gosh, it made all the difference in the world. When I got pregnant, that's when I really started booking, because I so badly, like, that pressure that we put on ourselves, like, I got to get this job, whatever. I was like, I really got to go lay down and take a nap. And then even when I had kids, it was like the most important thing in my world was my kids. So as opposed to like the most important thing is booking this job, it was like, well, I'm going to get the job or I'm not. Either way, I got to go back to this baby. So it took away a lot of that. I think that funny stuff that we put in our energy when we audition for stuff. You know what I mean?
Great. Maria, for you?
I have to be completely honest. I know it was a commercial, but I don't know which commercial it was for. But it was from a commercial. So sorry, it's not like so exciting.
That implies that you've done so many commercials you can't remember which one it is. So that's good.
Sorry. Oh God, now it sounded gross. Ew. Sorry.
No, not at all. Jake and Nick, I don't know if you actually have SAG cards, but a lot of times I know directors and producers get forced in front of the camera or have acting backgrounds. Do you have any acting experience?
Jay? I don't want to out myself as a bad union member, because I'm trying to remember. I've had to go in front of the camera a couple times. I believe I used to work at Saturday Night Live, and for a couple of the digital shorts, they would just need another face in there. And but but that was AFTRA only at the time. I think I signed up for that, and then they've merged, and I have no idea what my status is or anything. So it's not something I've done a lot of.
Is there a specific digital short we might be able to see you in if we look?
Yes.
I think I'm in one called I Wish It Would Rain, and I think I'm in one that Katy Perry Christmas New Best Friend one or something like that. But I'm just like a face in a quick moment. Yeah.
Awesome.
Did you just call Katy Perry Katy Perry?
Katy Perry, yeah. My dyslexic brain took full effect.
Well, listen, in Jake's defense, Katy Perry is obsessed with cats, so that's probably why he said that. That is true.
And her fans are called cats.
They are, yes.
But I've always said Cassandra.
That you have.
That's probably not even true. I probably definitely have not always.
No, you definitely call me Cassandra. There's just something about that,
sure.
Like Midwest.
Anytime there's, a hard Wisconsin A is gonna get in there no matter what. You have no hope.
Nick, for you?
I only ever called her Cass, which was my way of getting around it. That was the most simple thing. And then I've been a background artist in a couple of movies somehow. I think people always like ran out of extras, and if I was working on a shoot, they'd be like, "Idiot, stand in the back of this." So The World's End, which was the third of the Cornetto trilogy by Edgar Wright. I'm in the final scene as a rough and rowdy bar patron, and Elizabeth the Golden Age, Clive Owen. I just walked directly in front of camera. I was meant to go around him, and I'm right in front. Obviously, they didn't have coverage because it's in the movie. So if you want to go and find it, I am in both of those things, and that's about it.
Amazing. Yes, I will hunt that down so I can see you upstaging Clive Owen.
Yes, please.
So again, congratulations, not just on such an entertaining show, but for pulling off this incredible magic trick of jury duty. I'd like to start at the beginning with Nick, because I know you've worked in sort of this comedy reality hybrid before on like Sacha Baron Cohen projects. But what was the initial spark of the idea for jury duty, and how did you know it would make compelling television, or did you know?
Well, I'll give credit originally for the genesis of the idea was essentially cooked up between Todd Schulman and David Bernard, who are essentially kicking back and forth an idea of creating a hero's journey with a real person. And could you take something like The Office and you make Jim a straight real person who's not an actor, and would that even work? And then they obviously knew Lee and Jean very well, and they had been thinking about this jury project, and that maybe these things could meet and end up being a real thing. And here we are now. But in terms of, did I think could it be pulled off? Yes, is the answer. Having done some of the stuff I did with Sacha over the last half decade, there are things where you're like, well, that's not possible. You can't. There's no way you can do that. I mean, breaking in past like presidential Secret Service feels like a tall order. And you can do it, actually. With enough time and enough resources, you can beat the Secret Service. This felt like a massive challenge, because rather than doing something kind of crazy with a normal real person for a day, it was the sustained effort and the sustained sort of ruse, the Truman Show element of it, which had never really been done before. And that was definitely the challenge. We knew that we could probably get a couple of days of great stuff on this thing. But what happens on day 7 or day 9 or day 15? Will he or she still be in it? And that was the big gamble of the thing. And we're all here talking about it. So we're lucky that it paid off.
And Jake, for you, you've done a lot of comedies and I guess what we would call mockumentary style films like Tour de Pharmacy. What interested you in coming aboard this project, and how was it sort of presented to you? Like, I don't know that you can get a 20-second elevator pitch on this.
No, it's a tough 20-second elevator pitch. Dave Bernard, who I worked with on Tour de Pharmacy and 7 Days in Hell, and who I've known for a while, he's the first person to call me about this, and kind of, he kind of gave me the can we give someone a hero's journey who doesn't know they're the star of a TV show pitch. And he actually referenced some other shows that are not as nice as our show. And I saw those other shows and I was like, oh, I'm not interested in doing this. Like, I don't want to be mean to anyone for 3 weeks. And he was like, no, that's the whole point. It's like, we don't want to be mean. We want to do it in a heroic way. But the initial pitch of being like, we're going to do this for 3 weeks. It's going to be the biggest, longest version of this that anyone's ever attempted, to try to make a whole series out of it. And that was kind of, the crazy idea that was a little appealing to me.
I mean, it was appealing. Was it also intimidating and scary, or does that just excite you?
Yeah, a little bit of both. But I will say then the next round of convos I had with Cody Heller, our showrunner, and Nick here, Nick is a very good calming presence about making you believe everything is possible based on what he's been through. So Nick as the producerial role of like, it'll be no problem. We'll get through it like this. We have people to work on this. It'll be fine. And it was great.
I think it's the accent. It's very soothing.
Oh, it covers so many lies. That's the thing. Just right to people's faces as well. Just stare them in the eye.
So obviously this isn't going to work without literally the perfect cast. And I'd love to hear from the actors about booking the roles, because we all know audition notices and sides usually give you like virtually no information or just a glimpse of a project. So what did you know about the show when you first auditioned? And let's start with Cassandra.
Oh, dang. I was hoping somebody else would go first. I remember it being, do you guys remember it was like untitled legal comedy or something like that, right? Like it just very vague. They did, I remember being, sorry, Jake. I remember the words being referenced like The Office. I don't think we had heard Joe Schmo yet. I don't think that had been given to us in terms of the audition process. Yeah. And so I remember the initial audition for most of us, not all of us, but for some of us, was 1 minute of improv. Mine was in the style of, I forget what you call it, but it's like a talk back to the camera, like something just happened and they pulled you into the office so you can talk about what just happened, a la what happens in the office. They're in the office, they're talking to the camera person about like, so-and-so just did this thing. So that was the audition prompt that I was given. And I think I could pick maybe one or two things, circumstances to go in that. And initially the role was for the court bailiff. So I auditioned for Rashid's part. And so, yeah, we just, my husband helped me pick out this really dorky looking, like almost like uniform. I think I wore a black button down and I put a tie on and I said, babe, what do I look like right now? I know I look goofy. And he goes, you look like a busser at the Cheesecake Factory. And I was like, perfect. So then I like added that into my audition. And I just got to like, just talk and pretend I was, being interviewed, like, what just happened out there? And it's like, they're not respecting me, whatever. I don't know. And then we did the callback, which I won't touch on because that's a whole other big thing. And I know so many people probably have something to say about it, but it was very interesting and very fun and terrifying and intimidating and crazy. That's another experience. But yeah, it was pretty vague in the beginning.
David, for you, was there a specific character that you went out for? Did they already sort of give you an idea of who Todd would be?
Oh, I didn't hear anything about Todd at that juncture. I think I found out about the character maybe the day before we started rehearsing. Yeah, I think similar to Cassandra, for that first audition, I was really compelled because so many auditions are like, the sides. But this was, like the improv of it all was really, really fun for me. And then, found out the details about Todd as a character, before getting to set. So over the weekend, I was doing a lot of reading about cryostasis and, cyborg stuff. And yeah.
Wow. I really thought you had that all in your background because you say it with such authority.
Oh, well, that's kind of you. I don't know. I love sci-fi stuff. I was definitely what they'd call an indoor kid, I guess. But had to definitely had to do some quick reading about bells and whistles that people put on their body. Once you're in the rehearsal stage, how long before you actually started filming? How long did you have to lock this character down?
About 3 hours.
Yeah. 2 weeks was the rehearsal for the main cast.
Yeah.
And Maria, for you, was there a specific character or just kind of a general call?
No, it was a self-tape, and we had the choice. Well, for me, in my instance, was to pick 2 different original characters and to add a minute and pick under all these different scenarios that we could choose from. So I went with my go-tos, my stripper with a heart of gold and my chola. So, which you see at the end, which I'm mortified because I was like, ew. Well, anyway, that's a whole different story. But so yeah, and then I didn't hear anything back for about a month. So it's like, okay, you leave it, you let it go. And then I found out I was pinned. And then I found out I booked it. And then I spoke with the lovely Nick, and he told me what the show was about. And I'm like, okay, yeah, it sounds great. Sounds like so much fun. And I remember when we hung up and I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing, but I'm so excited. What are we even when we got to rehearsal, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm so excited.
Is that just an actor thing to just say, yeah, great, I can do it?
Yes.
Yes, but also going back to Nick's very soothing, calming voice, and honest to God, that's not a joke. That was very honest, where I felt like, okay, yes, it's going to be amazing. It's what Nick said. So yes, it is. So it was really like the best experience of my life. Really was on so many levels.
And Whitney, for you, you're sort of on the other side because you're playing a plaintiff. I don't know if, you just did a general audition, if there was a time that you thought you might be in the jury pool, or what the experience was like for you.
Well, I believe we all auditioned for jurors. So I went through the same audition process that Maria did. I auditioned, my 2 characters was a Jacques-esque, rich, out of tune woman. And then I played like a Southern housewife that would be so excited to be on jury duty. And the callback was the best. It was the best audition out of 12 years of auditioning. It was the best audition experience I've ever had, because we all had to go into a focus group and we weren't sure who was an actor and who was just a regular person. And so you had to be in character the moment you showed up in that parking lot, in the elevator, in the lobby, in the focus group, until you left the building. And so getting to be a rich asshole for like 3 hours was a dream. So
it was amazing.
It was so fun.
So Jake and Nick, you had real people mixed into this focus group?
Yeah, it was. I think it was actually probably the most novel thing we did in the entire making of the show, and we did a show that had never been made before. So that speaks to how awesome I think the audition experience was, which was, we knew, we received the tapes, as everyone's spoken about, and we knew that they're obviously fabulously talented people. We were very excited about casting, but I'd had the luxury of working with Sasha for a long time, and he is the premier talent in the world at putting him around real people who believe that he's a real, albeit eccentric and kooky human being, and they don't believe that he's an actor. It's an unbelievable skill that he has. And someone might be an amazing performer, especially on tape, but what happens if you put them around real people and you elevate the stakes such that if they make choices that don't go well, perhaps the whole thing gets busted and the entire endeavor gets blown up. That's a tremendous amount of pressure that all of these actors were under. So we wanted to kind of test that and see how they would do. So we came up with this idea of renting a focus group facility, a proper focus group facility in West LA. And we filled it with actors that we wanted to call back, who were not aware who the other actors were, who were aware that real people would be there, but we did not denote who the real people were. And it was an even mix of both. And we had about, I think, 6 groups come through. And for each of them, I remember every single person's audition, because Jake was behind the one-way glass and I was the moderator. I was the focus group leader, essentially. And I remember everyone's auditions. And coming into it, we had cameras up the wazoo. So we had a waiting room, which was essentially another group research room, which also had glass behind it. And we put refreshments in there and this and that and the other, had people wait there for 30 minutes. Well, what the real people didn't know, but the actors knew, is that the audition started in that waiting room. And Jake had gone through and spoken to every actor auditioning for the callback. and gave them essentially a little game, just a game that they could play to at least give them a biting point to be able to do something. And then we shuttled them over to the main the main focus group room, and we were testing that day Steven Spielberg's West Side Story, which they weren't aware of. Now, the reason that detail is interesting to me is that David Brown walks into his waiting room, and as part of his game, he at some point mentions his love of Stephen Sondheim. And we have not mentioned to anyone, it was a complete surprise. And then he comes into the focus group, and he is sat immediately to my right. And he has this fascination with Sweeney Todd, I think mainly because of the bloodletting in that particular musical. And as he starts going on and on about Stephen Sondheim, I'm like, oh my God, how's he going to react when in 15 seconds I start playing the trailer? Once West Side Story came on, he started vibrating aggressively, like physically vibrating. And I was like, holy crap, is this guy going to keep this up for like half an hour? And he did. And I remember everything. Whitney was the world's worst planned businesswoman. She came in slightly drunk and needing to catch a flight, but the flight took off in 30 minutes from LAX, and we're in West Hollywood. She's like, do you think I can make it after this? Is like, no, you maniac. You've clearly got these real people were then trying to help her. Like, we could maybe move the ticket for you. She's like, oh, I don't know. Anyway, it was I can give a little detail, but it was amazing because what you saw was, and some folks conversely as well, I think were very nervous about the experience and maybe didn't take their shots. And that was the real, not to speak on their behalf, but I think that was the real skill of the actors, was to know that you had an opportunity, take a shot where you could, but at the same time, if you blew it, that would be a big problem for the process. And that was
that was the tricky part. That was the best part about the callbacks, and I loved them, is we were really excited by everyone's audition that we called into the callback. And then this was like, let's see where their instincts are when, like, their job was, here's your character, here's like some jokes you can go for. But your goal is to not blow it because you're going to be around real people. So you don't want to push anyone to the point where they say, wait a minute, what's going on? This isn't real. But you also don't want to do nothing and be so real that you do it. So it's like if you can see the opportunity for a joke and kind of know when to take it and know how to not push it too far and still have a give and take because you're just one of 10 people in the room. So it was a great way to see everyone's instincts for that, which obviously became hugely important to what we needed in the show.
David, I'm curious, are you just inherently a Sondheim fan, or was that really acting?
Well, what happened was that in the waiting room there was like a complicated Keurig machine that I had not seen before, and the thing that they were talking about, like the game that they asked me to play, was like, be pretty normal, but just pick a thing that gets you like so excited that it like overwhelms you. And I hadn't picked the thing going in, and then I just like happened to be talking to this like, I think, non-actor about like,
oh, she was real.
Oh yeah. About how this Keurig machine reminded me of the chair in Sweeney Todd where they put the bodies down, and then that just became the thing from there. And then, sort of stroke of good luck.
David, I don't know if I ever asked you, but did you think that we ended up putting on that trailer for you because we heard what you were saying in the rehearsal room?
The thought crossed my mind, but I was like, that can't possibly be, but but the thought crossed my mind the whole time. There was sort of like the whole show was kind of like wondering about like how intentionally, because we're on the side of like putting the show on, being in the know. But I think, I don't want to speak for everyone, but there was always a part of my brain that was like, what if there is another level to this that I'm not aware of? That's like,
you're the one being targeted. Yeah,
exactly.
No, I don't blame you for thinking that. Yeah. I'm curious, for the actors, did any of you meet in those focus groups? Any of you here today? Oh, really? You were all in different groups?
I had Mekki. I was next to Mekki, the poor guy, the whole time. No, poor guy. Yeah, but not you all. No.
And also keep in mind that, they all arrived in character and left completely in character. And there was no like, hi, I'm Jake Szymanski, I'm the director. Hi, I'm Nick Hatton, I'm the EP. Like we completely left them to sink or swim by themselves because we wanted to see how they would do in that environment. So it was extremely like sort of clandestine in that way. And they had no information to go off whatsoever.
That, I will say, Nick, that was the part that was like the most heartbreaking for me, because I met this person who I knew was a regular, real dude. He was just too nice to have been in on it at all. And my prompt was that I was a business person, but I wasn't very good at it. And I pitched him my idea, and it was not a good idea. It was like a baby catcher that you put between your sofa and your coffee table, and the baby falls off. It'll catch the baby, but it also catches like remote controls and crumbs and snacks and stuff like that. And I'm pitching it to him like it's this real idea. And he was like, mm-hmm. And then he gave me like really good business advice and, was telling me what I needed to do to research it or whatever. And at the end of the day, like Nick said, we just had to like go get in our cars and leave. And I could never tell him like, no, actually my name is Cassandra. I don't think that's a good business idea. I am a mother and I would never buy that. And I just had to leave. And like, to this day, I don't remember his name. I wish I had written it down. So like now I could find him, but like, I was like, I can never tell this man that I am not who he thought I was, that I do know what Gelson's is. And it is a very nice picture, and I'm well aware. And it was heartbreaking. I was like, I want to tell this poor man who I am. I don't want him to think that this is a real human. That was very hard. I hated that part.
Well, I guess it's good practice. And like Nick was saying, I mean, the key to acting is that you should never look like you're acting. But in this case, specifically, you can't look like you're acting. And I'm sort of wondering if that's, if you had to stay in character 24/7, maybe not 24/7, but whenever like Ronald was around, and if that's normal for you, if you approach these roles the way you would sort of approach a normal narrative role.
That's a good question.
No.
No. I have thoughts.
It was completely different and a completely different kind of improv. It's a completely different kind of genre, because this was not only something where you had to creatively have your own character, but it was also like you had to sneeze like your character. You had to remember what you told Ronald 8 days prior. So you had to keep all your ducks in a row of like, oh my God, I told him this, I told him that, but still staying in character. And because he remembered everything. So he even would say something to me and I'm like, oh shit, shoot, that's right. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Or keeping up with it, because just everything about it. And it was such a crazy, amazing, bizarre thing to do. But the most beautiful thing of all is that we all had this level of trust, because once we were going, that's it. No cuts. We were in it. So there was kind of like this camaraderie where it's like, okay, I got you, you got me. Okay, here we go. Woo, let's go. Let's do it. And you were in it. So no, it was not like anything else. Jenelle.
I think sometimes, like, there's times when it's harder because you are in character all day. Unless when you go to the bathroom, you have like a 5-minute breath, right? So we like go pee and then be like, oh, okay. We'd laugh about whatever would happen. But so that it was mentally very taxing. When I'd go home at the end of the day, I was exhausted. But I think in terms of the acting process, my personal process, especially depending on the kind of scene that we're doing, whatever emotion I need to access or connection I need to have, I can take a minute. I might focus on something in my background or something like a made up scenario in my head, whatever it is. I'm going to take a moment, focus on that. And so I can get into the moment of this scene, because when you do, a scene, normally you've got one scene. It's like one moment in time that you're shooting. So you don't have to think about everything. You just have to focus on what's happening in this moment. And so there's kind of the privilege of being able to do that. Whereas in this one, we didn't have one scene. You're acting out the whole day. So while that is a little bit harder because of the being in character all day, and you have to be really, really present. I think all of us probably worked mentally harder being in this project than probably any other project, because you're just so aware of everything all the time. But the flip side to that is, and the bonus as an actor, is that you get the opportunity to just respond in real time, right? Acting is reacting. A lot of teachers will tell you that. Everybody will tell you that acting is reacting. So you got to just really see some guy say what he did in a movie theater to Pacific Rim. And you got to be like, wow, that's crazy. Like, you got to respond to that in real time.
Yeah.
That's a gift to me.
I would say that this isn't like anything else. I agree with what Maria and Cassandra are saying, but I feel like this process has informed and helped my audition process since we wrapped, because I've never been so committed to a character before. And the way I prepped for the character, like I dress up and go to Whole Foods and like get organic chicken and organic cannoli beans, and then I put it all back because I couldn't afford that. But I would be, like having to be committed to something for 8 hours plus a day has made me realize, oh, I need to double down on the other characters I'm auditioning for the way I did with this one. Hopefully not for 12 hours a day, but you know.
Are you grateful you got to go home at the end of the day, or are you kind of sad you missed out on the shenanigans at the hotel?
Some FOMO. I live a little bit of FOMO. It was nice to go home and have downtime, and I'd feel bad for those guys, but a bit of, I don't know. What about you guys? I felt a little bit of.
David, which would you have rather?
You didn't miss that much. Yeah.
Hi.
No, it's like I was trying to think if this is true. I thought it might be the case that we like spent more time, those of us that were at the hotel, like spent more time like in character, like off camera than on, potentially. Just in terms of like the amount of time that we were all like there, like hanging out. I don't know if that's true, but certainly it was like a lot of time just being in character, which was really helpful. Or like I think like there's so many great beats in the writers of the show worked out, but they were also like things that came up just organically, just from being with Ronald and hanging out, that it felt really I was really grateful for that time and the sort of like the attention that it demanded to be thinking about how those things would be constructed, like what might be like a useful thing to have happen, like the Bugs Life thing.
Yeah, everyone has fallen in love with this Bugs Life, and you could do a whole 2-hour special of them just watching Bugs Life. If you have that footage, please.
Yeah.
Who brought that up? Was it Ronald or you, or?
Ronald brought it up because we were at this hotel. The premise of being sequestered was like you can't watch live TV. So there's like the premise being like we'll have like DVDs for you to watch. Just request this. And I can't remember if A Bug's Life was already there or if Ronald requested it and when he did. But he had mentioned to me like multiple times, like I think we should watch this movie. I think you'll like it. And then the timing worked out that we finally sat down and watched it the day before the chair bands thing was going to come up. And he was sort of like looking at me like meaningfully, like during the movie, of being like, you know, that's kind of like what your whole thing is, which is really, really nice.
You never seen it?
Huh?
Had you really never seen it?
I had seen it, but Todd
had it.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. Yeah, there were a lot of things that Todd had not done. It turned out.
Nick and Jake, I want to talk about casting some of the people who aren't here, but starting with the casting of Ronald himself, because again, and I know you've probably spoken about this at length, but you really had to find a unicorn, you know, for this show. Was there ever a point when you were worried you wouldn't find the right person and you couldn't do this?
Personally, I felt like we could find someone and create a fantastic show. I thought that was always going to be a challenging task, but I thought we could do it. But if I look back and compare what I thought I could get to who Ronald is and how he was on the show and everything that's happened, no, I don't think. I think trying to find Ronald 2.0 is, I don't think you can do that. He's such a singular person, and not just in who he is, but in how our actors fell in love with him truly, and the relationships that they all established with him during the making of the show, which ultimately to me is the foundational element of the success of the show, was the relationships that they created with Ronald, which are real and meaningful relationships. So do I think you can engineer that again in such a way that you'd find someone who, you know, 17 series regulars would all completely fall in love with and have that reciprocated? I don't know. So, but we thought we could find someone who could go on a hero's journey and thought it could be fantastic and amazing. But I personally, I could never have imagined it going the way it did with Ronald.
Yeah, I agree. And also, as much research as we did, and obviously we were looking for someone like Ronald, and Ronald just ended up being even better than we hoped. Something I realized is, as much as you think you can prepare for someone, and as much research as you can do on our real person, our hero for the show. We did this for so long that after day 2 or 3, all bets are kind of off. Like, once someone gets sequestered for a jury and they're living another life, like, then you really see how they start acting, regardless of whatever their interview answers were or what they filled out on the survey. You know what I mean? And so I think it's hard. I think it's even harder than we thought to find the right person. And I think Ronald was way even better than we hoped, being the best person. So we did get very lucky in that way.
Did Ronald ever participate in like any of the focus groups or anything like that you mentioned? Or
No, he didn't. No, he was the first time he landed on set was cameras are rolling and we were live. So because it's important to make it. It's very, and Jake was extremely skilled in this way as well in terms of the way that he directed it and covered scenes, is that it was very important that he is not made to feel like he is the center of attention. That is extremely important, because you have to remember that he didn't feel like this whole sophisticated framework of TV making was around him and 160 crew members around the whole time. What he saw was 2 producers on the floor, who were the folks that had essentially recruited him in the first place, plus 3 camera operators and 2 sound folks. That's basically all, and also the COVID testing team. He saw nothing else. We spent a huge amount of time hiding the mechanism from him. So part of that was to make it feel like this is a very low rent documentary that may or may not be seen in some obscure part of Eastern Europe on public programming. And the reason is actually that is something which is heavily borrowed from sort of Sasha world, because if people feel like this thing isn't going to be big or no one's going to watch it, they are more inclined to act like themselves, as opposed to thinking like, oh, this is going to be some huge primetime thing on some network. Then they might start acting up and not be completely truthful to themselves. And we wanted the former. And that's why us deliberately downplaying everything so aggressively and not making him feel like the center of attention. Jake would constantly be moving camera coverage off him if he felt like it was there for too long, and make sure that different cameras are picking him up. So he had to feel like he was just another one of the jurors.
And the casting of James Marsden is so brilliant, because you have to find the right blend of someone established, but perhaps not so well known that it ruins the reality. I've talked to James, and he says, he was told it has to be you. But I am curious, if you couldn't have gotten James, did you have backup names that you were considering?
It's really tough. I mean, because James truly is perfect for it. So I think we would have been very hard pressed if James ultimately didn't do it. I think it would have been, and also like once you've thought of James and once you talk to him about it and you go like, you realize how perfect he is. And he's also, James asked the same question that we all asked when we first talked to him about it, which was, well, hold on a second. I don't want to be punching down for 3 weeks. I don't want this to be mean. And just in the nature of that being his hesitation means even more he's the right guy for it. You know what I mean? So it really, I'm glad we did not have to go beyond James. Let me put it that way. I think it would have been a tough process.
Yeah, I can't even think of an alternate for that list. The list is James Marsden.
I remember thinking when he'd sort of signed on the dotted line, as it were, thinking like, oh my God, this is, on paper, he feels like such a perfect marriage, because he'd done some comedy, he'd done the D Train and things like that. He'd worked with Jake before in the comedy, and you knew he could do it, but still known as being an insanely handsome, leading man. So on paper, it was exciting. But I will say, once he landed with us, it was it was incredible. It was such a delight to see him start working, and with everyone else, it was he was so perfect.
I was just talking to James the other day, and he said that his experience was, he went home one night, jury duty premiered on TV, and the next morning, everybody on the street stopped him to talk about it. And I'm sort of curious if that was all of your experiences. Like, what is generally the reaction when people see you? Like, are they I know that, for a couple of weeks I was worried about Ronald. And then I was like, so happy to see how it all resolved. But I think if I had run into one of you, I would have just been like, just tell me he's going to be okay. Was there a moment you sort of realized that this had blown up, and what were people wanting to ask you?
Okay, well, I'll start then. I'm like, no one's talking, I'll start. So the oddest one for me was I was having dinner with one of my best friends, And this 18, 19-year-old girl, she comes up to me and she's like, oh my God, are you Maria Russell? And I was like, and for a millisecond, I go, oh, she's probably my former dance student, like for a millisecond. And I go, yes. She goes, oh my God, I love you so much. Jury Duty is my favorite show. Can I take a picture with you? Oh my God, you guys, it's Maria Russell. It was the oddest, most surreal thing ever. Because then 10 minutes later, this man knocks on the window and goes, mouths, Jury Duty. And I said, yes. And he's like, oh my. So it was like, it's been kind of that response to it. And people are literally, I know you've said it, Jenelle, and I'm going to say it because it's the word that everybody uses, but people are literally obsessed with the show. Obsessed. And it's like, it still feels not real. Does not feel real that I'm talking to you right now in a Zoom. I just does not feel real still. Like it's amazing. And I'm so forever grateful.
I'm laughing because there was so many instances where people were talking to me or saying my name, and I was convinced it was because they recognized me from Jury Duty, and it would not be that. And it's so funny. It's become like a running joke between like me and my friends and my husband, because I'm like, one of these days somebody will know me from the show. But like the first time it happened, I like went out to eat. I had a day with me and my baby, and we were shopping, and I took him out to get lunch, and this table was sitting next to me. It was a table like 5 people, like a whole family, and I could feel them staring at me. Like you can tell when people are looking at you. And I looked out to the corner of my eye, and they're all looking over at our table, and I was like, here it is. It's starting. You know what I mean? This is the life of a celebrity. And so I turned around to say hi to them. I was like, hey guys, how you doing? And the dad goes, so how old is he? And he like points to my baby. I was holding my baby, and I was like, these mugs is looking at my baby. They ain't checking for me. Nobody care. They don't know who I am or what. So that's happened like 5 times. It's just so funny. So I've had 0 of that, and it's totally okay. But it cracks me up every time that it happens. Every time. So funny.
That I've had the same experience. And even at the taco trucks last week, unless I'm standing next to Ron or Ben or Ronald, people will be like, wait, do you? And they're like, wait, are you? And because I don't look like Jacques at all, because I smile. And she does such a resting bitch face. And so it's only at the taco trucks that people finally put 2 and 2 together. And maybe because I was wearing a Jacques shirt that they finally, but no, it's the same thing. It is, I have not. But at the taco trucks is when I realized that we're a part of something really cool. Very, very.
They get taco trucks. I love that.
Yeah.
David, for you?
Yeah, I don't know. It's been really nice. It's been like pretty like uniformly positive thing. Like people have good things to say about the show like all the time. They're very like curious about it. I guess like the moment where it felt like it had like achieved some level of like more people seeing it than I like thought would. I didn't know if the show like would come out or like if anybody would watch it. And I love like Nathan Fielder, Sacha Baron Cohen stuff. And so I assumed that like it would be like, popular perhaps like with a subset of people that liked those sorts of things. So then like I had like a friend that I hadn't talked to since like 3rd grade, like reached out to me and was like, I just saw the show. And I like, we hadn't talked in probably like 15 years, like 18 years, whatever. And it was like, that was a trippy moment, but it's really touching, like how much people seem to like the show. It's really nice.
And probably for Todd specifically, I think people got really attached to him. I suspect people they probably approach you with like the,
I think so. Yeah. Or like certainly more than I expected, which is also like it's a nice feeling to think about, just sort of like attempting to like play a character with some sort of like, I don't know, specificity and hopefully like some like respect to it that like people like resonate with or something, but it's really nice. Yeah.
funny because in trying to describe the series to people, they would have so many questions that like I couldn't necessarily answer. And like they got really hung up on the Marston thing. And the funny thing is the one time I did jury duty, I was on a jury with a celeb. So I was like, no, it happens. You live in LA. It happens. So it was all too believable for me. Well, again, I want to thank you so much. Congratulations on just a fantastic show, a fantastic social experiment. And thank you so much for sharing your process and your craft with your fellow actors.
Thank you, Jenelle.
Yeah, thank you. This has been fun.